Hello and welcome. Today we are diving into one of the biggest questions there is. What's our connection to a creator? We're going to be guided by a really fascinating text that takes us on a journey that starts right here, inside of us, and stretches all the way to the farthest reaches of the universe. So let's jump right in.
Okay, so right off the bat, the source material doesn't hit you with some dense, complicated proof. Nope. It starts with this incredibly simple but really profound question. It completely flips the script. The idea here is that the evidence for a creator is so obvious, so overwhelming, that it's actually doubt that's the strange thing, not belief. This question right here is going to be our guidepost for everything we talk about today.
So, where do we even begin a search like this? Well, you might think we'd start by looking through a telescope, right? At distant galaxies. But interestingly, the text says, no, that's not the first step. The very first clue it suggests is found by looking inward, at a feeling that's already deep inside every single one of us.
And that feeling has a name, fitrat. You can think of it as our spiritual default setting. It's this idea that we have a natural, almost hardwired inclination towards a higher power. Basically, if you could strip away all the noise, societal pressures, our own desires, all the distractions, what's left is this fundamental, intuitive recognition of a creator. It's not something we have to learn from a book. It's something we kind of already know.
This little story from the text just nails the concept of fitrat. It's perfect. So you have this brilliant scholar, right? He's probably surrounded by books, trying to build this complex intellectual argument for God's existence, and then his maidservant hears what he's doing and just asks that simple question, is there doubt about Allah? For her, it's not a puzzle to be solved, it's just an obvious truth. And that simple question completely stops the scholar in his tracks. He realizes he's trying way too hard to prove something that's self-evident.
All right, so we've looked inward at this fitra, this inner compass. Now, let's see how the argument builds by looking outward at the entire world around us. The idea is that if our gut feeling is the compass pointing the way, then the whole universe is the map, covered in signs that confirm we're heading in the right direction.
I mean, this analogy from Imam Ali is just fantastic because it's so simple and logical. We do this every day without even thinking about it. You see footprints, you know someone walked there. You see smoke on the horizon, you know there's a fire. So the point he's making is, if these tiny little clues point so clearly to their source, how can we possibly look at the vast, intricate, mind-bogglingly complex universe and not see the signs of its creator?
And this next story drives that same point home, just in a beautifully simple way. An old woman is asked how she knows God exists. She doesn't give a philosophical lecture, she just points to her spinning wheel. It only spins when she makes it spin. When she stops, it stops. Her logic is undeniable. If this simple little machine needs a person to operate it, how on earth could the entire cosmos, with all its planets and stars spinning in perfect harmony, run without a manager?
Now we zoom in. We go from a spinning wheel to the absolute miracle that is our own body. Just think about this for a second. We all start from the same basic stem cells, but then they get their assignments. Some become your heart, others become your eyes, and they never get it wrong. The heart cells don't suddenly decide to become an ear. It's presented as this incredible microscopic precision that points to an intelligent power overseeing the entire, unbelievably complex process. And then we zoom all the way back out, way out, and we find that even modern science, with all its amazing technology, runs into this wall of profound mystery when it tries to look back at the very beginning. Top cosmologists will tell you that the formation of the very first galaxies is just, well, inscrutably messy. And this isn't a knock on science at all. It's just highlighting that the universe's complexity is so immense that it seems to point beyond simple, random explanations. Okay, so if we accept the idea that evidence for a creator is everywhere, from our own cells to the stars, that brings up a huge question, a really important one. What's our role in all this? Are we just puppets on a string with our lives already scripted out, or do we actually get to make our own choices?
So the text draws a very, very clear line in the sand here. On one side, you have the idea of divine compulsion, the belief that God forces every single one of our actions. This idea is completely rejected. Why? Well, because if that were true, God would be responsible for every bad thing that ever happened, and the whole idea of justice or being held accountable would just be meaningless. So instead, the focus is on human free will. In this view, God gives us the ability and the guidance, but we are the ones who ultimately choose our path. And because we choose, reward and punishment actually make sense.
This explanation from Imam Ali is so important because it tackles a really complex topic. Someone asks him if a major event, a battle, was basically just fate. And his answer is so nuanced.
He says yes, it happened within God's knowledge and decree. But, and this is the key part, it was not a binding compulsion. It didn't erase their choice in the matter. Because if it had, he says, then what's the point of reward or punishment? The whole system would be a sham.
So here's the bottom line, the thing that makes it all click. God knowing what you're going to do is not the same thing as God making you do it. It's like a meteorologist who knows with 100% certainty that a storm is coming. Their knowledge doesn't cause the storm to happen, it just reflects their perfect understanding of the situation. In the same way, God's perfect, infinite knowledge of the choices we will freely make doesn't take away our freedom to make them.
And those choices, the ones we make freely, well, that's what this life is all about. They don't just disappear, they shape our future, leading us to the final part of this journey, the ultimate destination that comes after this life is over. So according to the text, our existence isn't just a one-and-done event. It's a journey that happens in stages. We have this worldly life, which is basically the testing ground, the time for us to make our choices and take our actions. That's followed by a transitional state after death, known as barzakh, and that all leads to the final stage, the Day of Judgment, where we are held accountable for the choices we made when we had the freedom to choose.
And this brings us to a really logical, almost pragmatic conclusion. The reasoning goes like this. Look, if it turns out there's no God and no afterlife, then when we die, believers and non-believers end up in the exact same spot. Nowhere. It's a wash. But if there is a God and an afterlife, then the consequences for belief versus disbelief are eternally different. So the text suggests that just pure intellect, just playing the odds, would guide you to the more prudent, the safer choice.
And we're going to end with this really powerful thought from the text. This isn't about logic or science anymore. This is deeply personal. It's the story of someone whose perspective completely shifted, and it boils down to this one question that cuts through everything else. What if he was right? What if this is all true? And if it is, what kind of future am I building for myself with the choices I'm making every single day? It's something to really think about.